Welcome back to the South Texan News Desk. As always, I'm your host, Tom Miller. To begin, we remember Jerome Timrack and William Renfro, two TAMUK professors who both passed away in early September. Timrack, an animal science lecturer, was laid to rest following a celebration of life on Sunday, September 13th, at the Marvin and Laura Bailey Pavilion in Robstown. Dr. Renfro was an art professor who taught for 43 years at Texas A&I and Texas A&M University-Kingsville. Now, in addition to the academic contributions that Dr. Renfro made to the university, it's also important that we remember his fight against discrimination of Chicano students in the 1960s. It's because of these efforts that many successful Chicano artists were able to graduate and go on to build prolific careers. In other news, Hispanic Heritage Month begins Tuesday, September 15th. While there are less events than we typically have this year due to COVID restrictions, you can still find the full slate of what's going on our website, thesouhtexan.com. The College of Engineering received a $50,000 grant from NASA as part of a NASA initiative that seeks to provide grants to minority-serving institutions, of which TAMUK is one. The college, in turn, is using that money and working with several other colleges and some high schools to create programs that broaden overall participation in aerospace engineering. The TAMUK Citrus Center received over $1 million in grants from the U.S. Department of Agriculture to continue their hard work and research relevant to Texas's citrus industry, including pest management, soil health management, and many other disciplines. Dr. Lucy Mar Camacho was also granted over $300,000 to continue water treatment research. This grant in particular is going to fund an upcoming research project based on graphene oxide mixed matrix membranes and their use in membrane distillation. To put that in simple terms, membrane distillation is a type of distillation and desalination that is generally more energy efficient than the current large-scale methods we use to purify water today. The membranes used in this study will be the mixed matrix membranes made from graphene oxide. Now, graphene oxide is a detoxifier and a cleanser. So between the membrane distillation and the graphene oxide, we're hoping that this study will provide a very efficient and clean end result in the water. For world news this week, we travel to Belarus first, where we look at the fallout of the 2020 presidential election over there and the mass marches and protests going on against Alexander Lukashenko, the sitting Belarusian president for 26 years. Now, Lukashenko insists that he won the election fairly, garnering 80% of the vote. However, the opposition has accused him of ballot rigging. And it's not just Belarus that seems to think that Belarus needs a change in power. Poland has been very vocal with their support for the opposition, with Polish Prime Minister Mateusz Morawiecki meeting publicly with Svetlana Tikhanovskaya, the leader of the Belarusian opposition efforts. She is currently in exile in Lithuania, as more and more Belarusians join the marches and protests. The interesting thing about Svetlana is that she actually stepped in as a presidential candidate against Lukashenko to replace her husband, Sergei Tikhanovskaya, who was arrested on charges of inciting violence only a few days before the election. Now, it's important to keep in mind that Sergei is a longtime blogger and political activist, and a common trend in authoritarian countries like Lukashenko's Belarus is that it's very hard to distinguish whether the opposition was actually doing something wrong or the crack squads just need an excuse to arrest them. Poland is even pushing the EU as a whole to back the Belarusians, but Lukashenko is not without his allies. On Monday, President Vladimir Putin met with Lukashenko and promised him a $1.5 billion loan to continue his political activities. What exactly political activities entails remains to be seen. Next, we travel to the border between China and India, where border tensions have reached another head. Now, for context on this, understand that this particular border is in mountainous foothills, which means that at times the terrain can be very unhelpful in actually establishing the border, and the border almost becomes fluid at certain points. Combine this with both sides building infrastructure along that border, and it's easy to see why encroachment accusations have been flying. Tensions came to a head in June in the Galwan Valley in that area, when a fight between soldiers there was the first blood spilled between India and China since 1975. Recently, China returned 5 Indian nationals who, according to the Indians, are said to have accidentally crossed the border while hunting. The Chinese, however, believed them to have been intelligence gatherers disguised as hunters. Over in Afghanistan, recall that the U.S. and the Taliban reached something of a treaty between themselves back in February, but the Afghan government and the Taliban still have accounts to settle. That may be coming to an end, as peace talks between the two groups beginning September 12th have reportedly gone well so far. However, it's not exactly easy to negotiate the end of a nearly 20-year conflict. But looking past the politics of it, the most significant effects of peace in Afghanistan, perhaps, are on the civilians of Afghanistan. After all, those who were born in Afghanistan in 2002 and since have really only known an Afghanistan in war. Now, the Taliban say that they want to impose an Islamic yet also inclusive government. How exactly that would work would largely depend on whether the new government is built on Sunni or Shia interpretations of Islamic law. But to paraphrase Mike Pompeo, the entire world is counting on these talks to succeed. And if they do, it could represent a significant turning point in a year that most would say has been the most chaotic in memory. That's all we have for you this week. For more information about the goings-on here at campus, check out our website at thesouhtexan.com or follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at The South Texan.